No way! Our house is.
This house and the land belong to us. We can do whatever we want, right? The daughter-in-law should just be a maid in our house. As I raise my voice in shock, my mother-in-law is smirking at me. The moment John passed away, my mother-in-law arbitrarily demolished our house. She has always been like this. Treating me, the daughter-in-law, as if I were her servant, completely ignoring my opinions and feelings. Moreover, she misunderstands me working from home as being unemployed and thinks I'm leeching off her son. She seems to think it's okay to do anything to a leeching daughter-in-law. But I never imagined she would go this far. I've been enduring it until now, but I've reached my limit. Feeling anger rising inside me, I slowly opened my mouth to retaliate against her in front of me. My name is Mary Johnson. I'm a 43-year-old working housewife. I usually work from home. I don't have children, and it's been 12 years since my husband John and I started living together. We just got married and don't have much money, right? So, I decided to take over the house where my dad and mom were living. My parents are going to live in a new house built elsewhere, so we can live in the old one. At the beginning of our marriage, John told me such a thing, and I, who knew nothing yet, was quite happy. I was thinking of our own home, but I was anxious whether we could afford it with what John and I earn, so I was very thankful to my in-laws. Mom, thank you so much. This makes our married life more comfortable. Don't worry about it. We get to live in a new house, and we don't have to deal with the old house, so it actually helps us. I was thanked by her instead and thought I had a generous mother-in-law. Under these circumstances, the house where John and I live is registered under my in-laws' names. I have suggested changing the registration numerous times, but John has been lazy about it, and it has remained the same. However, this was a mistake. This house is also ours. You're saying to us it's troublesome if you just come over unannounced, but indeed, who do you think you are? I reprimanded her for her repeated unannounced visits. Even though I work from home, it's impossible to get any work done if you keep coming over all the time. When I mentioned this, wrapped in diplomacy, she snapped back, claiming this was their house. Since then, she has always spoken down to me, constantly complaining. As for my father-in-law, he's completely under her thumb, practically non-existent. I complained to John, but he just said, it's not my problem, and wouldn't even listen properly. My mother-in-law's sarcasm and harassment have escalated over the years, and recently, she has started doing unexpected things. The other day, she took home clothes of mine that were clearly too small for her, claiming they suited her better. After all, she couldn't wear them and returned them to me in a huff. What will happen if her sarcasm and harassment get worse in the end? I've been living day by day, unable to do anything, with a hint of anxiety. One night, I was enjoying a slightly luxurious dinner alone. It was my 43rd birthday, but John was going to be late because of work, so I bought some deli food from the department store's food hall. Enjoying a nice drink, I savored my solo dinner. John has only celebrated my birthday for about 2 years since we got married. Now, it seems he's completely forgotten today is my birthday. Well, it's fine. I don't want a celebration now. Having the freedom to eat what I like is the best birthday present for me. It was a brief time until John came home, but I was fully enjoying my alone time. However, the pleasant time was ruined in an instant by the merciless sound of the doorbell, followed by the thumping of footsteps. Hey, Mary, it looks like John's suit jacket isn't here yet. Hasn't he come back? My mother-in-law barges into the living room without any prior notice, making me almost sigh, oh, again. This is a regular occurrence for me. Since it happens almost every day, I don't even bother complaining to her anymore. He's going to be late because of work today. I answered with a forced smile, to which she showed a displeased face. Then she noticed the deli food on the table and her eyes widened. Mary, what's this food? You didn't make this fancy stuff, did you? I'm sure you couldn't. This is some deli food I bought. Actually, today is my birthday, so I was enjoying a little nice dinner by myself. I tried to continue, but she interrupted me with a shrill voice.
Oh. While your husband is out working, you're at home enjoying a luxurious meal? What a terrible wife. Huh? But I was working today too. Working? You were just playing on the computer, right? Using my son's money to buy such nice food.
I always work from home on my computer, but to her, it seems like I'm just playing games. I've explained it many times, but she doesn't listen or try to understand.
For someone unemployed, indulging in such luxury, you really lack the awareness of a wife.
With that, she grabbed my half-eaten meal and threw it into the trash.
What are you doing?
You, an unemployed person, should just eat beans or whatever. Moreover, she started rummaging through the fridge without permission.
Please stop.
Oh my. This cake, it's from a high-end store. Such waste on someone unemployed like you. I'll properly throw it away later. With that, she snatched the cake box. The deli food was thrown away because it was half-eaten by me. But the cake was untouched, and from her smirking face, it seemed she planned to take it home to eat. I was furious and tried desperately to take back the cake box from her.
That's my birthday cake. Please give it back.
Oh, it's your birthday? There's nothing to celebrate. You're already in your 40s, not a child. You don't need this. And then she added insult to injury with such a snide remark. Really, you become such a lazy wife because you don't have children. I've told you over and over to have kids. At those words, I grimaced deeply. I wanted kids too. But John said having kids would be too much trouble, so he didn't cooperate. He used to say he wanted kids before we got married, but were those words a lie? I've explained to her over and over that John doesn't want them, but she seems to conveniently forget the inconvenient truths. She blames me every chance she gets, saying it's my fault we don't have children. I'll start cleaning up now, so please go home for today. It gets dangerous when it gets dark outside. I try to sound concerned for her, to get her out of the house. My enjoyable alone time was ruined because of her. I usually don't say anything to John, but this time I might not be able to hold back. I used to think it was okay for him to come back late, but now I'm waiting for him to come home, irritated and thinking, hurry back. When John finally comes home, I immediately try to tell him about what happened earlier. John silently hands over his bag, and as I take it as usual, I start talking. Hey John, your mom came over today and… Then, John grimaces severely. Look, I'm tired, okay? Can we talk about your complaints some other time? I would normally back off here, but today I can't hold back. Despite hesitating a bit, I persistently pressed John. When is some other time? I know you're tired, but I need you to listen to me now.
You're so persistent. I'm telling you I'm tired. I'm not free like you.
He throws his suit at me in annoyance. I snap back, irritated by his attitude.
I've been working at home too. Your job doesn't bring in much money, right? You're living off my earnings, so don't talk back to me like that.
John's words leave me wide-eyed in shock. Does he really not know that I've been working and managing our finances? The amount he gives me each month for living expenses is minimal. We couldn't possibly live on just that. Yet, it seems he's convinced that the money he provides is enough for a comfortable life. At the beginning of our marriage, I showed John the household budget and explained how much we needed each month. John was surprised, saying, "It costs more than I expected," but he seems to have completely forgotten about that. Forgetting inconvenient truths must run in his family, just like his mother. John, my earnings are… Thinking this misunderstanding is terrible, I try to explain in a hurry. But John forcibly cuts me off, not wanting to hear any more. Your trivial story is less important than mine. Look at this. He hands me the health checkup results from his company, taken about 2 months ago. Checking the content, almost all items have bad ratings. This result is terrible. Isn't it your cooking to blame? You haven't been putting something weird in the food, have you?
There's no way I would do that. Then your cooking must be unbalanced in nutrients. Watch what you're making from now on.
John says arrogantly, but he hasn't eaten the meals I've made for the last few years. In the morning, he eats snacks or fast foods left out, has lunch out, and occasionally eats my dinner but leaves the vegetables and only eats what he likes. He usually comes home drunk when he eats out. I've told him several times that such eating habits would ruin his health, but he never listened. Instead, he found my advice annoying and brushed it off. Even though it's clearly his fault, he refuses to accept any blame and puts it all on me. I'm about to snap at him in anger, but I know getting mad now will only make things worse.
You need to get a re-examination. It says so right here, doesn't it? Please make sure to get it done as soon as possible.
I urged John to go for a re-examination while suppressing my irritation. However, John frowns and retorts, "No way, that's too much hassle. You just need to be more careful, that's all." With that, he left for a bath, leaving the living room. I was left standing there, stunned. John is a husband who doesn't even celebrate my birthday, but I was the one who chose to marry him. I am genuinely concerned about John. Yet, why can't my feelings get through to him? Feeling empty, I started to be even more careful with the meals I prepared from that day on. But despite my efforts, John passed away about a year later. I had repeatedly begged him to go for a re-examination. However, he ignored my requests and let it be.
I don't have time for such bothersome things like re-examinations.
Yet, when he was at home on his days off, he just lounged around. There were plenty of opportunities for him to go for a re-examination. And when he started saying, "I feel weird, like something's off with my body," his condition rapidly worsened, and by the time he was taken to the hospital, it was too late. There was nothing to be done, and John passed away quickly.
It's your fault my son ended up like this. Give my son back.
My mother-in-law blamed me harshly for John's death. My father-in-law was still as absent as ever, but the look he gave me was filled with resentment. He probably thought the same as his wife. I told them repeatedly.
I told John many times that the results of his medical checkup were bad and he needed to have a re-examination.
But he wouldn't listen to me. I tried desperately to clear up the misunderstanding, but my mother-in-law wouldn't believe a word I said.
It's all your fault. I'll hate you for the rest of my life.
After that, we held John's funeral, but my in-laws didn't help at all.
It's your responsibility, Mary. You take care of everything.
That's what they told me, and I had to handle all the funeral arrangements and subsequent procedures by myself. I was so busy I felt dizzy, but my in-laws ignored it all. John often said he hated hassle, and I think he got that from his parents. My in-laws always pushed their problems onto me. This time was no different. They blamed everything on me and pushed all the troubles onto me. They acted as if it was natural and never thanked me once. I'm tired. The funeral was over, and I had finally finished all the arrangements. Today, I will rest without thinking about anything. Staggering, I crawled into bed. When I woke up, I could hear my mother-in-law's voice. "Yes, thank you very much for that." Wondering what was going on, I got up from the bed. I heard her voice from outside the bedroom and realized she had let herself into our house again, and I sighed. I tidied myself up to the minimum and went to see her, who was at the entrance, suddenly handing me something. "Hey, did someone come by?"
No, no one came. But Mary, you must be tired with all that's happened. Here, take this ticket and have a good rest.
Eh? I looked at what she handed me and realized it was a ticket to the station nearest to my parents' house. Come on, hurry up and get ready. That ticket is for departure tomorrow. I've included the return ticket as well. Take a week off and relax." Pushed by her, I started preparing for an unexpected trip back home. What's all this about? It's unbelievable for her not to make a single sarcastic remark at me. Could it be that she actually feels sorry for me about it? Maybe my mother-in-law feels regret that she blamed me for John's passing away and that she pushed all the paperwork on me. And yes, I am completely exhausted right now. I needed time to stretch out and refresh by going back to my parents' house. At that time, I was still tired and didn't notice if she was scheming something. Normally, I would have been suspicious of her actions. But this time, I completely let my guard down and returned to my parents' house without a second thought. My brother and his wife live there, but when I contacted them, they said, "Come over anytime." I took their word for it and relaxed without holding back at my parents' house. I met up with old friends and played with my brother's children, fully healing my fatigue.
My mother-in-law does do something nice once in a while.
On the day of my return, I boarded the high-speed train in a good mood. Unusually, I bought a souvenir for her and returned home with a lighter heart and body. However, what awaited me upon my return was my house, brutally demolished.
No way! Our house is. This house and land are ours, so we can do whatever we want, right? The daughter-in-law should just be a maid in our house.
She, with a triumphant grin, sneered. Indeed, since the house and land were still in my in-laws' names, they could do whatever they wanted with their property. But I never imagined they would go this far. Maybe, the person she was talking to on the doorstep that day was from the demolition company. While pushing the funeral and all sorts of procedures on me, she must have been advancing her plan to demolish this house. Otherwise, there's no way they could demolish the house so quickly. She clearly looked down on me, thinking she could do anything she wanted because I was her son's wife. I never directly confronted her because she was my husband's mother. That probably emboldened her. But I won't let her have her way anymore.
Oh, Mary, what's the matter? Shocked and crying, are you?
Mistaking my bowed head for crying, she bent down to peer into my face. However, I slowly raised my head and faced her, showing a bright smile.
Eh? What are you smiling about? Have you gone crazy from the shock?
She says it's such a shock, so she must be aware she has done something terrible. The fact was so absurd that I started chuckling. Eventually, I couldn't hold back and burst out laughing loudly.
Have you really gone mad?
No, I am perfectly sane.
Oh, by the way, I have to decline your offer from earlier.
What was it?
The daughter-in-law should now be a maid in our house, right?
While she was flustered by my words, she responded.
No, you're lying. You've lost your husband and now your house, you have nowhere to go, right? I believe your brother's family lives at your parents' place, right? It must be embarrassing to return to your parents' house at your age, so we will take care of you. But as a maid, of course.
Regaining her usual tone, she gave a sinister smirk. To that, I replied while laughing.
A daughter-in-law? What are you talking about?
I am single.
Eh?
A dumbfounded voice came from her, and I nearly laughed again.
Actually, I divorced John a month before he died.
Yes, John and I had already returned to being strangers. But right after submitting the divorce papers, John's condition suddenly worsened. Despite being divorced, he was someone I once loved and married, so I couldn't just abandon him. That's why I decided to take care of John until the end. With all the chaos, I had lost the moment to inform my in-laws. But I never expected such a perfect moment to come.
So, I have no obligation to live with you. After all, we are strangers.
She had intended to drive me out of my home and take me into hers, to treat me as a real maid. Recently, she has been complaining about how her body isn't moving as well as it used to because of her age. However, she has also been adamant about never wanting to enter a nursing home. She intended to have me look after her until she passed away. Normal people might wonder if that's a reason to demolish a house, but she is capable of doing outrageous things without batting an eye. Previously, she broke a necklace that was very dear to me right in front of my eyes. That necklace was a precious memento from my deceased mother. Such a beautiful necklace, let me see it, she said as she forcibly took it from my hand and, claiming her hand slipped, tore the delicate chain. As I cried over my broken necklace, she coldly said this.
I'm sorry, it wasn't on purpose. But clinging to such a memento forever would only disappoint your mother in heaven.
At that moment, I realized I would never understand her. She had done such cruel acts without remorse in the past. So, her demolishing the house didn't surprise me. She probably wanted to see me distressed from the demolition for her twisted pleasure. It seems like making my life miserable was her source of joy. In other words, she was a pitiable person with nothing else to live for. Even after revealing the shocking truth, she seemed unyielding.
What? You two divorced? Did you force a divorce on your critically ill son? How could you commit such a heartless act? I'll demand alimony. If you don't want that, just do as I say. There was a reason we had to divorce.
Her eyes widened in anger as she confronted me.
A reason you had to divorce, huh? It must be a good one. Go ahead and say it if you can.
Spitting in her fury, she screamed at me, and I frowned, stepping back from her. Then, I revealed another fact.
John, your son, was having an affair. What? An affair?
Apparently, this was too unexpected for her, as her body trembled slightly. John had been coming home late for years. He claimed it was because he was busy at work, but that was a complete lie. He had been staying out late to meet his mistress. I suspected the affair when he came home late 3 days in a row. Women's intuition is sharp, I was amazed. How just a slight change in behavior could reveal he was hiding something. The definitive evidence was when he left his phone on the living room table instead of taking it to the bathroom. I saw a message from his mistress saying, "Last night was fun. Let's go to that hotel again." The moment I saw that message, I realized, he really was having an affair. I had been aware of John's infidelity for some time and accepted the fact without much surprise. By then, my love for John had nearly vanished. What did it matter what someone I didn't love anymore did? I didn't need to be shocked. However, we were still married. He had to pay for betraying his wife. I acted quickly from there. I used my savings to hire a private investigator. Once I had gathered solid evidence of the affair, I took it to a lawyer and filed for divorce. The divorce was finalized a month before John passed away. I was ready to pack up and leave right after, but then John collapsed. There was no love or affection left between us, we were practically strangers. But I couldn't just leave a person suffering right in front of me. I'm not that cruel. John begged me with tears to stay until the end, and so I ended up taking care of him till his last moment. But when I say I took care of him, it was only the bare minimum. I didn't offer comforting words, I was merely there, handling his needs in a businesslike manner. John tried to cling to me out of fear as the disease ravaged his body, but I ignored him and treated him indifferently. Even after John passed away, I had no intention of ever forgiving his infidelity. But John was not in a position to pay alimony in his condition. However,
I was demanding alimony from John, but since he passed away, I can no longer claim it from him. So, I decided to claim it from you two instead. Please make sure you pay. What? Why do we have to pay?
My mother-in-law's eyes bulged with rage at the mention of alimony. She seemed more shocked by the alimony claim than the fact that her son had been unfaithful. It seems she adored her only son, but she loves herself more. Disgusted, I sighed and explained to her.
In cases where the responsible party has passed away, the family can be held accountable. It's understandable that you're not aware of this. However, this has been confirmed by my lawyer. A lawyer? You, unemployed, can't afford a lawyer. Did you steal money from John's savings? You thief! Give back my son's money.
I felt dizzy with her absurd accusations. She has always been unreasonable, but she's gotten worse over the years. But if I give in now, it would only lead to more problems later. I sighed for what felt like the umpteenth time, faced her, and slowly said,
I'm sorry to say this, but I earn more than John did. What nonsense! Have you gone mad?
She snorted with disbelief. I resisted the urge to retort, who's the one who's really gone mad here? Then, I rummaged through my bag and thrust a document at her.
This is the payment statement from one of my clients. I have contracts with several other companies, so my annual income is higher than this.
She looked from the paper to my face. Her eyes nearly popped out in disbelief as she flipped back and forth between the two. She seems unable to believe that the amount written there is real. Despite my repeated explanations, she seemed to have completely forgotten about my job. I'm a freelance programmer and make quite a good income. I worked for a fairly large company after graduating from college. While there, I built up experience and contacts, then moved to freelance work. Before marrying John, he had said, "I want you to focus on our home, so quit your job. We'll probably have kids eventually." But since his single income wasn't enough for a decent life, I kept working. Now, I truly believe it was a good thing I didn't just go along with what John said back then. Up until now, I had to cover the living expenses for both John and myself, but with just me, I'll have more money to spend freely, so I can live a bit more luxuriously than before. It was fortunate that I kept the payment statement with me. Before going back to my parents' house, as urged by her, I noticed the payment statement from a client in the mailbox and thought it would be unsafe to leave it there, so I tucked it into my bag. I never imagined that when I returned, not only would security be the least of my concerns, but the house itself would be gone.
You're supposed to be unemployed.
She's still in denial. I bluntly presented her with the facts. The demolition of the house was unexpected, but it's not a problem. After divorcing John, I had already signed a lease for an apartment, so I was planning to let go of this house anyway. It actually saved me the trouble. What concerns me is what happened to my belongings, but well, she surely hasn't thrown everything away. She, refusing to admit defeat, pointed a trembling finger at me.
It's because you didn't have children quickly that my son ended up like this.
Really? You still want to blame me?
If there had been children, my son would have taken better care of his health and lived longer. It's your fault for being infertile that my son died. You should pay for your responsibility.
Her ridiculously selfish reasoning made me burst into laughter. Then, I picked a particular image from my phone's gallery and showed it to her.
This is the conversation between your son and his mistress. Let me read you the message John sent. Turns out I might not be able to have kids. Got tested after my wife kept nagging, and the doc said so. So I guess, free rein to cheat. It was your son who was infertile, not me.
Before marrying, I had a bridal check and was diagnosed with no issues. Unlike John, I didn't lead an unhealthy lifestyle and was in good health. I could have become pregnant any time if I had wished.
Do you understand now? The problem was not with me, but with your son. That's a lie! That can't be! It doesn't matter if you don't believe me. My lawyer will be in touch soon. You might not believe my words, but you'll believe a lawyer's, right?
At this moment, I gave her a smile. This smile was my revenge for all the times she had her way with me. From now on, you won't have your way anymore, and you will take full responsibility, was the message I conveyed with my full smile. Whether she got the message or not, she turned pale and collapsed weakly on the spot. After leaving her there, I headed to my new apartment. I already had the keys, and the furniture was all set up, so there would be no issue with living there. And a few days later, it seems my lawyer had contacted my in-laws. Initially, they refused the lawyer's demands, saying, "That's impossible," but when faced with the prospect of going to court, they complied without further argument. As a result, I received alimony payments from my in-laws. The in-laws tried to sell the land where our house once stood, but due to its inconvenient location, it seems they're having trouble finding a buyer. They could probably sell it if they lowered the price, but they've apparently used a significant portion of their retirement savings to pay me alimony, so they can't afford to lower it. My father-in-law, already retired, had to return to work by registering with a senior employment agency because they're struggling financially. But it seems his earnings are too low to help with their living expenses. My mother-in-law, having been a housewife with no work experience, is struggling to find employment. Because of her selfish nature, it's unlikely she'd last long anywhere. Driven by desperation, I heard she's been gathering water from a public park and picking wild plants to stave off hunger. Eating plants picked from the roadside is risky, she might accidentally consume something poisonous. But as they are now strangers to me, whatever happens to them due to their own actions is not my concern. If my in-laws had been kinder to me, or had helped me after John passed away, I might have considered the what-ifs, but reality was far from that. Whatever happens to them now is their own doing. That's a direct result of their past actions. So there's no need for my sympathy. By the way, my belongings were stored by my mother-in-law in a rental warehouse. I thought she might have taken anything valuable, but perhaps she realized she couldn't afford to mess with someone who could hire a lawyer. I was able to recover all my belongings safely. After the alimony payments, she contacted me once, help, but I ignored her and proceeded to cancel my phone contract. Only my family, work colleagues, and close friends know my new number. My new apartment is in a completely different location from where we used to live, so it's impossible for my elderly in-laws to find me. Just to be safe, I chose a new place with excellent security. If my mother-in-law does find me, security will immediately be alerted. It would just increase my hassle, so I'm hoping that won't be necessary. Right now, I am living a life of smooth sailing. Free from John's care and my mother-in-law's nagging and harassment, my life is stress-free. The only challenging aspect is my busy work schedule. Since I have more personal time, I've taken on more work, maybe a bit too much. But it's led to high recognition in my job, and it looks like busy days will continue. However, I manage to refresh myself adequately as I can meet up with close friends on weekends. At this age, many of my friends are also free from parenting duties, so it's easier to find time to catch up. Life after marrying John was filled with unpleasantness as I aged. I was scared of becoming more unhappy as I got older, but now, I'm not afraid of anything. I am free now, able to go anywhere. I believe I will continue to live smilingly today and tomorrow. Living a life where I can keep smiling until the last moment is my goal now.